All right, so over the last couple of days, we have had an absolutely wild outbreak of tornadoes across primarily the Midwestern United States, and the damage has been absolutely catastrophic. So I wanted to bring you guys this story because not only just from the humanitarian aspect of it and the immediate help that a lot of these people need, but also from a couple of different angles, namely climate change and the continued exacerbating effects that we are seeing as climate change continues to worsen and absolutely jack shit gets done about it. And then the other angle is a labor exploitation angle, and we are going to get to a story here from an Amazon facility as well as a candle factory that were, for some reason, in the midst of all of these tornadoes, still forcing employees to show up to work in these ridiculously dangerous conditions. So here from the New York Times, just to start us off here, tornadoes leave trail of devastation across 6 states with scores dead. And officials said that there were at least 70 deaths in Kentucky, where many had been trapped inside a flattened candle factory, and there were at least 6 fatalities in a roof collapse at an Amazon warehouse in Illinois after severe weather ravaged the country on Friday. So let's go ahead and read some of the details here. So they say in Mayfield, Kentucky, about 110 people had huddled inside a candle making factory when a tornado ripped through it, and about 40 people were rescued. But Mr. Bashir, talking about the governor, said he believed dozens had been killed there, and at a news briefing on Saturday, shaken local officials said that they were struggling to comb through the debris amid blocked roads and lost water and electrical service. And they say, quote, "This has been the most devastating tornado event in our state's history," the governor said at the briefing, "and the level of devastation is unlike anything I have ever seen." And other states were also hit hard. Officials said that at least 6 people had been killed at an Amazon warehouse in Illinois, like we were just talking about, and 4 had died in Tennessee and 2 had died in Arkansas. So just to give you the initial perspective before we get to the Amazon facility, and we're also going to check out a little bit of the just a visual perspective of the destruction, but just on the climate change angle, okay, they say scientists are not sure whether there is a link between climate change and the frequency or strength of specifically tornadoes. We know that it is with hurricanes, but for some reason tornadoes are a little bit different, in part because of limited data. But researchers say that in recent years, tornadoes seem to be occurring in greater clusters, and that a so-called tornado alley in the Great Plains, where most of these tornadoes occur, appears to be shifting eastward. And also, we are in December, and the primary tornado season is usually like roughly in spring. So you see the shifting nature, no pun intended, but the shifting nature of how climate change is continuing to impact the environment here in the United States, again, as basically nothing is being done about it. In fact, if anything, we are still trending in the wrong direction. Joe Biden, his administration just passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is actually a net negative on climate change, as they are continuing to fail to pass the Build Back Better Act, which would, barely undo a lot of the damages that are going to be caused by the bipartisan infrastructure framework. So basically, we're still trending in the wrong direction on climate change under the Joe Biden administration. Now we get to the labor exploitation side of this. So inexcusable here from Common Dreams. Amazon under fire after warehouse collapse kills at least 6, and requiring workers to work through such a major tornado warning event as this was inexcusable. So they say Amazon was accused Saturday of putting corporate profits above worker safety following the tornado-caused partial collapse of a St. Louis area warehouse that left at least 6 people dead. And they say, quote, "The time and time again, Amazon puts its bottom line above the lives of its employees," said Stuart Applebaum, the president of the RWDSU union, in a statement, and requiring workers to work through such a major tornado warning event as this was inexcusable. And they say among the buildings struck was an Amazon facility in Edwardsville, Illinois, a community that is about 30 minutes from St. Louis, and local officials said Saturday that at least 6 people died from the collapse, and a local news station reported that the walls on both sides of the building collapsed inward, causing the roof to fall. The 11-inch thick 40-feet walls could not sustain the tornado that hit the building Friday night, and the National Weather Service confirmed that it was a Category EF3, not really sure what that means, going to be honest with you guys, tornado that went through Edwardsville Friday night, and winds picked up to as much as 150 miles per hour. So it was a pretty substantial tornado. Obviously, they knew that some form of storms were coming, not saying that they could have predicted that a tornado would have literally ripped through the factory itself or the warehouse itself, but they did have forewarning that there was going to be extreme weather on on this night and still force their employees to come in and work under these conditions. And we're going to get to another piece of the practices that Amazon was putting in place that kind of had an exacerbating effect on this. But just before we get to that, as pointed out here by Brian Kahn, okay, this is a good point, that this is not the only time that Amazon has done something like this in terms of forcing people to work through extreme weather conditions. He says this is the third time in 6 months that Amazon workers have been working in the path of deadly weather. Warehouse workers also had to go in during record-smashing heat in the PNW and the deadly Ida floods in New York City. And just like those disasters, last night's tornadoes were well forecasted. And he was basically responding, as we're going to get to in a minute here, one of the Amazon warehouse or the Amazon worldwide consumer CEOs here, Dave Clark, basically responding to this crisis by literally saying he is giving his thoughts and prayers to the victims. Okay, so his complete non-response was pathetic, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But you see here, this is not the first time that Amazon has done this, okay? And it's really not out of character for Amazon. If you watch my channel, then you will know the extensive labor exploitation that Amazon relies on as a function of its business model, okay? We know that Amazon delivery drivers, just for example, were exposed as having to literally pee in bottles and shit in bags in order to meet the absurd quotas that Amazon gives them so that we can all get our precious commodities the next day after we order them, okay? So we know Amazon is guilty of mass labor exploitation, almost unlike any other company in the United States. So that's nothing secret. It's nothing surprising that Amazon would be doing something like this. Again, it's perfectly in character. And just, I'll link this down below. This is a quick little mutual aid side here, okay, that he links down below from the Sunrise Movement. So I'll also put this in my description if you want to go and help some of the people who are suffering from this current catastrophic storm. So I'll put this down in my description as well. But now let's just get to Dave Clark here, okay? This guy who is a husband, a father, the CEO of Amazon worldwide consumer, etc., okay? This motherfucker, in response to this crisis, okay, says this: "We're deeply saddened by the news that members of our Amazon family, okay, the same family where, if you were following along with the Bessemer, Alabama unionization attempt, okay, didn't really look like a family to me, okay? It seemed like you were, propagandizing people, trying to intimidate them and force them to not form a union so that they could basically hold you accountable in any way, shape, or form. So it doesn't really seem like you're treating them as a family, but this is what corporations say all the time." So again, he says, "We're deeply saddened by the news that members of our Amazon family passed away as a result of the storm in Edwardsville, Illinois. Our thoughts and prayers," like literally doing the cliche that everybody makes fun of at this point. "Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims, their loved ones, and everyone who has been impacted by the storm's path across the United States." And the reason why I brought up this specific reply is this is actually from an Amazon worker in Kentucky. And you will see here how ridiculous it is that this Amazon worker, because they don't have union representation in large part, has to literally directly reach out to the CEO to get basic accountability for their work time, basically, and being prevented to show up to work because of the storm. So he said, or she said, Leslie Campbell here said, "I'm an Amazon worker in Kentucky. The tornado hit 2 miles from my house and I physically couldn't get to work for my shift. The ERC team told me that they had no record of tornadoes in Kentucky." What the fuck? "And couldn't help me with not getting attendance time reduced for today." So again, okay, she is literally having to reach out directly on Twitter, and the only reason that this was even, taken seriously at all, and you see he responded here and said, "Okay, I shared this with the team, we're gonna get it fixed." I don't know what the end result was, but the only reason why she had to come onto Twitter and fucking beg the CEO to fix this tiny logistical problem, okay, because there was a tornado in her neighborhood and she couldn't get to work, she has to reach out directly to the CEO, okay, on Twitter. All right, this is fucking ridiculous to just get basic accountability. All right, so this is what a union would be able to do for something like Amazon warehouses, okay? This is why it was so important that, or it is still important because they're going to have a re-election, that the Amazon Union Drive in Bessemer, Alabama ends up succeeding in the end, or that whatever way it may come about, that Amazon workers get union representation, is because these are the exact types of protections where a union would be stepping in place to represent you and protect you, instead of you having to go as an individual on fucking Twitter to beg the CEO to help you out in this situation, okay? So again, the only reason that he was even inclined to respond to this worker in this case is because there's a direct spotlight on him because of what just happened. But again, okay, workers' lives are being put directly in the path of harm to maintain the short-term profit margins of Amazon, okay? That is the reality of this. They are willing to go and sacrifice people, or at least put them in harm's way, if it means that next day shipping is able to seamlessly continue, okay? So again, this is not out of character for Amazon. And there was another piece of this that was even just on top of everything else, just kind of a bizarre policy that Amazon has in place that makes these types of situations that much worse. So they say here from Common Dreams again, adding to the fresh scrutiny of the online giant's labor practices, as Bloomberg reported on Saturday, are its policies regarding employees' mobile phone access. And from the reporting, they say, Amazon had for years prohibited workers from carrying their phones on warehouse floors, requiring them to leave them in vehicles or employee lockers before passing through security checks that include metal detectors, and the company backed off during the pandemic, but has been gradually reintroducing it at the facilities around the country. And they say, quote, after these deaths, there is no way in hell, this is from a worker, there's no way in hell that I am relying on Amazon to keep me safe, one unnamed worker from another Amazon facility in Illinois told Bloomberg. If they institute the no cell phone policy, I am resigning, and that seems like it is absolutely 100% justified. What a fucking bizarre policy to have for your workers, especially in a situation like this when you know extreme weather events are just on the horizon. You're going to keep people's phones from them so that when this type of shit happens, they have no ability to call 911 if that's what they need to do. They have no ability to call friends and family if they want to reach out and say, I'm doing okay in a situation like this, or I'm not doing okay in a situation like this. So again, just adding to the long list of these ridiculous labor practices that Amazon has put in place to exploit their workers as much as physically possible, okay, whether it's forcing them to come in during extreme weather events, or it's, tedious little bullshit like this, like not letting them have their phones on the floors because they are so worried that, they'll go and check their phone or something and not be spending every single second of every single day dedicated to shoveling packages around. But this is what Amazon does, okay? This is the nature of Amazon. And again, the lesson at the end of the day is Amazon workers and workers across the United States overall would be significantly better off if they had union representation, and types of, horrific events like this hopefully would not be able to happen in the future. And again, just to give you a little perspective in terms of the actual raw damage that had occurred, I mean, you see the devastation here, okay? We are talking about like an entire town, an entire city that has been absolutely flattened here, okay? It's irreconcilable. It's not even recognizable compared to what it was before. Incalculable loss for so many families across the states that were hit by this. So again, I'm going to drop that down in the description below, that mutual aid link from the Sunrise Movement if you want to go help out. And yeah, all solidarity to these Amazon workers and everybody who was impacted by this.